Now to a CBS News exclusive. A White House insider who was named in Chairman Adam Schiff's impeachment report is refuting the suggestion he may have been part of a back channel to the president on Ukraine. CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge has the exclusive.
You're at the intersection of all of these stories, whether it's Russia collusion or now Ukraine.
Kash Patel is officially a special assistant to the president who specializes in counterterrorism. But he's also at the center of the Russia and Ukraine investigations. He stands accused of feeding information on Ukraine to President Trump as part of an unofficial back channel.
Have you discussed Ukraine with President Trump?
Absolutely not. Not ever.
The Democrats' 300-page impeachment report says Patel spoke with Mr. Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, weeks before aid to Ukraine was suspended.
The House Democrats' impeachment report states that you spoke with Rudy Giuliani on May 10th for over 25 minutes.
That was a personal conversation that I was delighted to have with the former mayor of New York City, where I grew up, and we discussed personal things.
Not Ukraine, not the hold on military aid, not the Bidens or investigations.
No.
We asked Patel about Republican claims Ukraine, not Russia, interfered in the 2016 presidential election.
What's the evidence that Ukraine meddled in the 2016 election?
That is not something that I worked on when I was at House Intel. We ran a Russian active measures investigation into the 2016 election. Whether there was Ukrainian involvement or not, I'm not able to comment on that right now.
And Catherine Herridge joins me now from Washington. Hi, Catherine. So, during her closed-door testimony, Fiona Hill said she believed President Trump and Patel had exchanged some material regarding Ukraine. So is that at odds with what he told you?
Well, Tanya, I think it's absolutely worth going to the deposition from Fiona Hill to see what she said to congressional investigators. And I have it right here. And she's very specific about an incident where she went to the White House to run an errand, and she got into a conversation with a senior White House official. And she states of that conversation, quote, "I was a little bit surprised by that because the president has never asked to speak to any of our directors ever before." And I said, "Oh." Then she continued, "Yeah, to talk about some materials, and the materials is a key point there." And I said, "Oh, again, because I thought this is strange." And they said, "Yeah, so I mean, we might be reaching out to Kash." And she goes on to say that that could only have been Kash Patel. And we put this to him directly today, and he was very categoric. He said, "I've never talked to the president about Ukraine. I've not shared documents with him about Ukraine, and I've not discussed investigations about Ukraine with the president," Tanya.
And Patel also told you that his call with Rudy Giuliani was not related to Ukraine. It was about personal matters. But does he or Democrats have any way to prove what was said on the call?
Well, that's an excellent point, because we can't independently here at CBS News know what was on that call. But I think it's really worth going to the Democrats' report, because they lay out a very interesting timeline. They state specifically that there was a phone call on May 10th with Rudy Giuliani. Beginning at 3:23 p.m. Eastern Time, Mr. Patel and Mr. Giuliani spoke for over 25 minutes. And then they state, 5 minutes after Mr. Patel and Mr. Giuliani disconnected, an unidentified one number connected with Mr. Giuliani for over 17 minutes. And shortly after that, Mr. Giuliani spoke with Mr. Parnas for approximately 12 minutes. And Lev Parnas was working on Ukraine with Rudy Giuliani, and he was separately indicted on alleged campaign finance violations. But what we heard from Kash Patel today is that this was a personal call with Rudy Giuliani, and he was quite categoric. It had nothing to do with Ukraine, but we can't independently assess that here at CBS News.
Right. And of course, as you pointed out, it's an interesting timeline as well. Now, we understand that Patel worked for Congressman Devin Nunes before working at the White House. What was his role there, and does he have any comment on reporting that says Nunes was talking to Giuliani's associate?
Well, we asked him specifically today if he had any information about Congressman Nunes and his phone calls with Giuliani or Lev Parnas, and he said no information about those phone calls. But then we said to him, okay, fine. So that's one issue. Why do you think that you keep coming up in these reports? And so it's important to note that Kash Patel was the staffer who wrote the memo in January of 2018 that alleged that the FBI and the Justice Department had improperly obtained a surveillance warrant for a Trump campaign aide. And that was the memo, in many respects, that kick-started the investigation into these surveillance warrants for the Trump campaign and the renewals. And of course, Monday, we're going to get an independent assessment over whether any procedures or laws were broken. Tonight, we reached out to Chairman Adam Schiff's committee for a statement to respond to these allegations from Patel. We have not received one, but of course we will update our reporting if we get new information on that front, Tanya.
And Catherine, you note that Patel is now filing a lawsuit against some media organizations. Who is he suing and why?
Well, he most recently launched a lawsuit against the New York Times over reporting that specifically made allegations about a possible back channel and his role in that with Ukraine within the White House. However, the New York Times, in response to a media query about that lawsuit, said, quote, "Our story was carefully reported and we stand by it. We will defend the lawsuit vigorously." So he has taken the unusual path, because I can't think of a lot of situations where a current White House official has launched a lawsuit to refute allegations about their actions within the administration.
Very interesting. All right, Catherine Herridge, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.